When it comes to property management, a lot of people ask the question, buy versus build. And so in 2021, prior to that, we had worked years in the making to launch our own management company that we built from the ground up, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's also very common in our space to just acquire a property management company and have kind of instant scale and instant vertical integration. So what's your thought process on the buy versus build, and what, how do you look at your decision in the acquisition?
Yeah, so well, I can tell you, so my CFO and I, we actually had a conversation about this prior to the acquisition, and it was, hey, I think we might need, we may need control to run the whole aspect of these types of deals. And I went to him, I said, man, I think we're going to have to build this. And his exact response to me, which, I mean, he's a little bit older, he's 54, and so it was, if you go and do that, with the commitments that you already have, you have to understand this is going to kill a large portion of your time to be able to go out and do that, because you're establishing culture, you're establishing the right people that you need to be in this. And so we had already had a group that we were talking, we're in, and so we started bringing assets to Right Move Storage. So they were actually our property management group before we actually acquired them. And so it was, let me see how they do that. Wow, this is great people. They have great knowledge. They have a great culture in place. And so the approach was made of, hey, is this something you guys would consider? I would say they didn't take too long to consider it, because I think we both had brought a lot to the table to do it. And so for us, it was, hey, I want you guys to keep operating the way you're operating. We're going to have, kind of weekly calls and check-ins with everybody, and then, we'll be in the office together kind of thing. But culturally, we didn't really change much at all of what they had already going. And they had already been a company that's been in the making for 10 years. It is extremely hard to build a 10-year-old company. It's probably the easiest way to say that.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to want to fast track what you're doing, right, and get the results today for the assets that you're bringing in, acquiring a property management group that can already do the job makes a lot more sense. If you're going to want to have your fingerprint on every single thing going forward associated with it and go slower, because it will require you to go slower, then you could build one, right? But for us, what made the most sense was bringing in a more established group that already had, somewhere between 80 and 90 employees, instead of having to go find all those people all over again kind of thing. But you start with the right people, and the rest takes care of itself. And so we were able to start with the right people that had already been established for a decade and move forward that way.
With that said as well, we've gone through the several businesses that you are running. How do you delegate and manage your time? I know you mentioned you think you have CFOs or kind of positions that are, executives at every kind of company, but from, kind of a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, where does your time flow, and how do you spend it, and at which point?
Yeah, so my time is actually heavily scripted throughout the week because of it. And so call it check-ins, or call it, face-to-face, or meetings associated with all those key people. That happens on an every week basis, right? And so and that's the thing, I find myself more of a people person than anything, meaning pick the right talent to be able to run it, and then you're not going to have to worry about it, right? And then trusting in them, and then supporting them to be able to surround themselves with the right team members, then they typically do pretty well, right? And so, yeah, but it's not like I'm going to go find somebody off the street, right, and go, all right, now you're going to go lead this company for me, right? These are people that typically I've worked with or been with for no less than a decade kind of thing. And, it's taken time to develop all these things. So even though Sunset Capital as a company is younger, right, the relationships that we have within the group, even though the bank is younger, right, the relationships we have within the group, these are relationships that are typically been formed over decades. And so it's not as simple to just go, all right, we're going to go build this, and I'm going to go find all these people to do it. It's more of I found the people, and now we're building the companies around them.